and welcome to another edition of MOE Conversations. Conversations with the Ministry of Education about topical issues in Trinidad and Tobago's education sector. I am Dr. Nyan Gadsby-Dolly, Minister of Education, and I'm happy to have you join us for this small nugget today. I am so pleased to have with me, as we discuss TVET education in Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Ruby Allen, who is the chairman of the National Training Agency. I'm also happy to have Ms. Carol Bikram, who is our Director of Research, Planning and Technical Services at the Ministry of Education, and a dose of very young blood, Ms. Naomi Frederick, a graduate of the Steel Pan Manufacturing Program. And we're going to hear a lot more about how she fared following her TVET education. So we are looking at TVET education, technical vocational studies, and how they are carried out and conducted in Trinidad and Tobago and their importance to our national development. And so, without further ado, let's bring Dr. Allen into the conversation. Dr. Allen, how are you?
I'm very fine, thank you.
Wonderful. Really happy to have you with us.
You're welcome.
So let's start right off. What is TVET education?
TVET education focuses on the development of skills, the development and acquisition of skills. So it's not just knowledge, it's looking at what the person can do with the knowledge at the end of the day, and also contributing to personal development and also to employability. So when we talk about TVET, we're really talking about those skills that are being developed for employment, for industry, and for application, whether it's in the home or in the office, or generally speaking, in terms of lifelong learning.
And some of us may know it by the old name TechVoc.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
TVET is the new name for these subjects that deal with vocation, skills, hands-on.
Yeah.
What are some of the subjects that are TVET areas? Because sometimes, you know, people might not be sure about what a TVET subject. What are some of those subjects?
Well, we offer our TVET subjects in schools, and some of the popular ones are commercial food preparation, grow box preparation in terms of agriculture. People also like some of the skills such as masonry and welding, construction skills.
Metalwork and all of that.
Yes, cosmetology is very popular.
So that's hairdressing is TVET.
As well, yes.
Okay.
You know, so those are some of the ones that we think of when we think of TVET.
Okay. Is technical drawing also TVET?
Yes, it is, and it's one of those construction skills as well. Of course, now it's driven by the technology a lot, so you have the AutoCAD and the software, the use of the software, but it's also very popular, yes.
Okay, so you have a wide range of TVET offerings coming from the secondary school, and we have somebody here who did the CVQs. Can you tell us what are those CVQs that persons register for?
The Caribbean Vocational Qualification, which we call the CVQ, is really a regional qualification which is based on occupational standards. So rather than just taking an area of knowledge, a subject, let's see, and determining what the content would be and teaching that content, we allow industry to develop occupational standards. And industry in that sense would determine what is required to perform a particular job, you know, in the company or on the workplace. And using those parameters in terms of what's required, the occupational standard is then used to develop a qualification, and someone can actually earn the qualification by independent learning, by learning on the job, by apprenticeship, or a combination of workplace and classroom learning, and then be tested for competence and acquire that qualification. So the entire qualification is built out of what industry says is required for performance in the workplace.
So therefore, those CVQ subjects, so somebody may be doing CXC, but they will be doing CSEC, which we are accustomed with. So that would be your academic subjects.
Yes.
But if you're doing a TechVoc or a TVET subject, you may be pursuing a CVQ as your qualification, not a CSEC.
Yes, and also the Caribbean Examination Council would be awarding as well the CVQ. We also have the TTNVQ, which is the Trinidad and Tobago National Vocational Qualification. And in those cases, those would be standards which were developed by local industries, but have not been tested at the regional level as yet. So in that case, you're sure that you're getting a qualification that meets the requirements of the employers in Trinidad and Tobago. But we have to go a step further in terms of ensuring that it meets the requirements of employers across the region for it to be called a CVQ.
Okay. So we have persons pursuing CSEC, we have persons pursuing CVQs.
Yes.
Ms. Vikram, could you tell us, what are some of the institutions, government-funded institutions in Trinidad and Tobago that offer technical vocational education?
Thank you, Minister, and thanks for having me here today to share a bit about the ministry's role in technical vocational education and training, which is really very important. So there are three main institutions that the government would support in terms of, we call them public finance funded institutions. So you have the MICIT, we also have YTEP, which is youth training, and as well as the National Energy Skills Center. These three institutions have campuses and sites throughout Trinidad and Tobago as well, stretching from the north to south, east to west. Okay. And they offer a lot of the programs that Dr. Allen would have mentioned previously.
Okay, so someone interested in TVET training, therefore, has quite a few options.
Definitely, a number of options, actually.
Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for training in electrical, plumbing, are those also TVET areas that you can get training in from these government institutions?
Definitely.
Okay, so that's available for our public. Why are TVET subjects important? And that's something that, you know, we need to establish. Is it important to do TVET subjects? Why? What does it lend to a person to do this type of practical, hands-on skill training? Could I ask Dr. Allen to comment on that?
Yes, education is something that has to be holistic. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, we have to cater for persons with all types of interests and persons with all types of abilities. And so TVET offers just one of those options. And persons who like to work with their hands, persons who like to do skills-based subjects, they offer the TVET subjects, and they normally excel at those subjects. We have a number of cases where persons may be driven to go into certain subject areas only because they do not find anything that's available in terms of their interest. And they may find that over time they become very disenchanted, they lose interest in school, and they perform at a lower level. When we have a wider range of options available for students, including TVET subjects, we often find that they're able to make those choices based on what really interests them and what they want to take into a career.
Okay. Carl, could I get your perspective? What is important about TVET education and skills training?
Students, if we look at the future, I think there will be greater opportunities in tech voc areas as we go forward. Important to note, a lot of students who do TVET subjects can actually become they're employed, self-employed.
Entrepreneurs.
Yes, and as they develop, they can form their own businesses where they can actually have their own clientele and provide those services across the country. You don't have to be centered in the towns or the cities, but across the country, really.
You know, and it's so interesting now because what you find is that there's a wide range, since we have entered the COVID situation, what you've seen, especially on Instagram, is a ballooning of young business people. Mm-hmm. And they are doing, from what you have described, TVET things. They are cooking and baking. Yes. They are doing cosmetology, hairdressing, makeup, and you see all of that coming in. And the entrepreneurial link between TVET education and our business or micro enterprise, I think that cannot be overlooked, and what it can really contribute. And in a time where many people are having to reskill because jobs are being lost, it might be even more important to consider TVET education and what that can bring. Let's bring Naomi into the conversation because we have her here, and she has been a student doing TVET. So Naomi, tell us, what are some of the important lessons you learned doing a TVET subject? Tell us a little bit more about your experience, what you studied, and the things that you learned from doing TVET.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this topic today. Well, I study mechanical engineering technology at MIC for the last 3 years. And my experience so far, I can't even describe it because I learned so many things. And being at MIC, it actually encouraged me to start my own company called Women of Steel, aka Women in Steel Limited. Women in Steel Pan Limited, sorry. And we cater for female advancement and the promotion of the steel pan industry, and also we want to create a sustainable business where people in the industry can look for employment from that, especially in the steel pan industry. Sorry,
Right,
I'm a bit nervous.
Right. That's right.
But
So you went from secondary school into MIC, yes? All right. So what did you study at secondary school to allow you to enter MIC?
well, I did languages in school, but our school, I study at Mucrapo West Secondary. They introduced a new class, the language class, and they decided to put a CVQ with it, pan manufacturing. They wanted to see how a language class could have worked with this area here, and it was actually really successful. It was 18 ladies in the class, no males, and that is really important. And we was the first to get a level 2 in that particular CVQ, steel pan manufacturing, at Mucrapo West Secondary School. And PCS played a huge part in it, Pan in School Coordinating Councils. Now it have 9 schools in Trinidad and Tobago that actually teaching pan manufacturing as a CVQ, and that is really important to me because I think the foundation starts there with steel pan, and we should pay more attention to that. After secondary school, my teacher encouraged me because he saw a skill. He saw that I was really interested, and I love the steel pan, I love our culture, and I had no doubts in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to MIC for 3 years, and it doesn't matter because I think I could use this opportunity to build on something that is really important to me and that is vital for our culture. And
So if they did not pair that particular CVQ or TVET course with languages, do you think you would have been interested in doing it? Would you have naturally gravitated to it?
Yes, because I am very curious, a bit fast. So I would go by the music room every single day and want to pound the pan and play it, and you know, drawing star lift. And the school was seeing a great interest in that, so there was like, I think that we should do this. And the students, everybody was willing. And I think that I would have been in this area even if they didn't offer it at our school.
So what the practical experience of actually, you know, ponging the pan and doing that, how was that in terms, were you very excited to be engaged in that? Was it very different from a class where you would sit down and say language classes, where you wouldn't have that necessarily hands-on experience? What made that so exciting for you?
It was something that was really different because our class didn't have no SBAs. And when we came into that class that one day in the week, everybody just wanted to pound the pan and sing this to get the finished product. But everything had to take time. We had to sit down in class, discuss what we're going to do, learn about music, learn about the instrument, the history behind the instrument, in order to put that knowledge into building the steel instrument. So I would say the experience was both hands-on and
The theory.
yes, the theory as well.
Okay. So in going to MIC, you are female, and I would imagine that you may have been in not the majority of the students going to MIC. How did that feel, being a female in what may be looked at as a male-dominated area, TVET?
Well, I was a bit happy because when I came the first day, I was like, wow, it's only females in here. And they were mostly my friends, and we decided to go on to MIC. And we took that as, well,
Did you feel out of place at MIC?
no, we didn't feel out of place. It was very welcoming. And we took that as, well, this is something that females don't usually get into. and we could make something out of this. So we decided to stay and weather through everything in order to be where we are today.
At the end. Okay. All right. So we've heard from Naomi. We've seen her passion about how excited she felt, doing a TVET subject. And it may be a part of the creativity, because it gives you that chance to work with your hands and to see a product. Because she spoke about sinking the pan and, the product of it all. And TVET has that effect on you because, you're actually doing something and seeing a result, coming from that. How can TVET be used to inform national development? And what is the NTA's role? Because Dr. Adin, you were the chairman of the National Training Agency.
Yes.
What is the role of the NTA in TVET regulation and the contribution of TVET to national development?
In terms of national development, the NTA sees TVET as the engine room of the economy. This is where the artisans, the technicians, the tradesmen are developed. That helps to drive our competitiveness as a nation. The NTA's role in terms of TVET is to ensure that there's quality, to ensure that there is efficiency, to ensure that there is inclusivity as well. When I speak about quality, you have a lot of providers of technical and vocational education and training. And the programs, people want to know, well, do they meet international standards? What about accreditation? What about quality assurance? Well, the NTA plays a very important role in terms of setting standards for the training providers, for monitoring the training providers, and we have what is called center approval. So you have centers that will be NTA approved, and you know that you can guarantee that if you send your children or if you attend one of those centers that are approved, that they meet the international standards for technical and vocational education and training. In terms of the efficiency of the sector, you want to also ensure that the resources that are being committed to TVET by government are being utilized in a way that brings certain outcomes. And those outcomes would be the quality of graduates, the level of graduates, and also ensuring an adequate supply of workers for industry. Because in terms of employment opportunities, you want to ensure that you have the numbers that are required by industry, or you have skill gaps. And if you have skill gaps, then you have issues in terms of your competitiveness of your industry. So the NTA also ensures that. The NTU, in terms of inclusivity, it is again coming back to that thought that you want to cater for a wide range of persons with a wide range of interests. And I know that we probably talk about that, but TVET has a certain stigmatization sometimes. But when we talk about inclusivity, we talk about equity, ensuring that everybody has an opportunity to study or to engage in learning what they want to learn. And it's not about having something being more important than the other. It's just a matter of interest. It's just a matter of what you love. And that young lady a while ago was talking about what she loves to do. And that's what TVET offers. TVET opens doors for young people to really find what they want to do, to find their niche, to develop it, to make it into a career, to make it into something that they can engage in for their lives.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the NTA then has a regulatory role.
It does have a regulatory role, which is largely quality assurance by ensuring that the providers meet acceptable standards. At this point in time, there is no legislation which would require that persons comply with the NTA standards, but we have also been working towards getting that.
Yeah, because at this point, we want to ensure that all of our citizens who may be engaging in TVET training are really getting their money's worth.
Yes.
And they are receiving the training that they are looking forward to be able to provide the service to our population. So if you're a baker, you're into TVET. Yep. If you're a shoemaker, you're into TVET. If you are a technician, you're into TVET. And I think there are many people who may be involved in TVET education and work who may not recognize that they are into TVET.
No, and Minister, if you think about it, when people were asked during the lockdown what they were missing their hairdressers and their barbers and their nail technicians, and that's all TVET. And those are the skills that people really, wanting to get back out there to be able to enjoy.
Oh yes, remind us all of it. And we, of course, are looking forward to not being in that position again.
Exactly.
Because it really was a hard time.
Yeah.
And so, you know, all our artisans,
Yeah.
these are your jewelry makers, these are
Yeah.
all TVET
Yeah.
skills. And it's really an emphasis on marketable skills, things
It
we can
is.
do to make money. If you're a seamstress, a fashion designer, all of these are TVET. So TVET is very, very important for national development.
Yeah.
And yet still, there's a stigma, as you
Yeah.
said, associated with TVET. And I'd like to get all of your perspectives, maybe Carol, you can start with you, about why do you think, what is this stigma and why? Why do we have this stigma that, you know, persons who are involved in TVET, and we just spoke about how many, the breadth of persons involved in TVET, how is it that there's a stigma associated with TVET, and why you think that is so?
I think in the past, really, that stigma was so rampant, and students gravitated to academic subjects, and TVET was seen as a subject, well, you didn't do so well in academics, maybe you can do something with your hands.
Mm-hmm.
But more and more now we see where TVET subjects are very related to the computer, and science is so important. And actually, persons who get involved in engineering, if they were to do the TVET subjects, they would progress even further. I think it's about, sometimes I personally feel it might be parents who we need to really look at the stigmatization with, because from generations past, they may feel it more than the younger persons who would want to get involved in that hands-on subject area. They like it. They recognize that they can get a job faster. They can earn more income. In industry, TVET subject graduates may actually fare much better than some of the graduates of academic programs. It will be easier to get jobs as well. And as we said before, you can become your own boss, really.
So it has something to do with our paradigm and our mindset.
Yes, a shift.
Naomi, what do you think? Why you entered the TVET arena? And I'm sure that there's always that, you know, competition in your head, you know, should I do this, should I not do this? Did you feel that there was a stigma associated with you going into a TVET area for study?
Yes, and I 100% agree with that. Because I myself, I was doing work, but it wasn't there, and I was trying my best and my hardest, and I did well. But even though I had the academics, I gravitated more to this particular field, well, TVET. And my grandfather, he was saying, but Naomi, and this and that. So I understand that it needs to start with the parents, because this is something, you need to study your work. This is, you're going to do something with your hands and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, no, but this is a skill. They're teaching me about business, how to be in the industry, how to act as an entrepreneur, how to be that, how to think innovative. And because I listen to myself and I say, hey, well, Naomi, this is your side, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stop school. Because I'm currently still going to school, and I'm also in these TVET programs, and it helped me a lot. It actually assisted me in everything, my entire life for the past 5 years, my entire development. So I really think that these programs that TVET is offering is important, and it is very vital. And I would encourage persons, especially females, to come on, join it. Don't be afraid. Don't think of it as, well, I'm not doing good at school, so let me just go and do something with my hands. Your hand, it showed for the last year that your hands is actually helping you make the most money. And when you actually be creative, it's helping you make the most money. And people who have, like, you know, went to school for the past however long, is the ones who have to, like, be like, oh my gosh, let me see what I can do now. And they have to go back and learn a trade. And I think it's important to come on and just...
So what you're saying then is that doing TVET can give you a resilience right? Can give you a resilience and also aid to your self-development, allow you to think in practical terms about how you live. And as we've seen, as you rightly said, over this time here, it has been so important, and we use the term pivot, but it is skills and training that have allowed many persons to be able to pivot when their traditional employment, maybe didn't stand up to the situation with the pandemic. Dr. Ellen, what is your perspective on that? Why and how is it that we have, maybe undervalued TVET education?
I agree with Carol that parents have a large part to play. Somehow parents have got it in their minds that all the children need to be doctors and lawyers, and they push them in terms of some professions that they think carry a high status in society, without recognizing that people just want to do what they find fulfillment in. And so it's time for us to change that mindset. It's also time for us to be able to explore and to explain the range of subjects and fields that are really falling in this category called TVET. Because we didn't even talk about IT, but there are a number of IT professions that now fall under TVET. Data operations, we have persons who are doing CVQs in those areas as well. Digital entrepreneurship, which means that you can take whatever your skill is and turn that into a business.
Okay.
And that's also one of the TVET areas. So the stigmatization, I think, came a lot from our history and from what parents expected in terms of early employment. But the employment patterns are changing, opportunities are developing, new opportunities are coming forward, and people need to now be able to embrace those opportunities and to put aside those old, ideas about everybody needing to be this or that, and allow people to really explore what they feel fulfilled doing.
Carol, do you think there's a role for the Ministry of Education in putting aside some of the stigmas that may have developed? Is there a role for the Education Ministry? And I'm going to ask Dr. Allen to also comment after that on the role of the NTA in really re-establishing the importance of TVET and so.
Definitely, and even when we look at the education policy, which I had a part in and in developing, and when we were looking at it, I insisted that we cannot keep one chapter only on just tertiary, because skills education will be left behind. And we felt it was important that TVET and the role of TVET must play a pivotal role, as you said, and that it must be kept separate from just within tertiary. Then we would focus too much on academics, and it would be left behind. And I think it's a good thing. Even when we had consultations last year, a lot of questions from the public came in on the TVET subject areas, really.
Okay. So what's the role of the ministry has a role in, making TVET education standalone, it's making it important, emphasizing its importance.
Yes.
What's the role of the NTA, and how can the NTA help to change that mindset?
The NTA over the last 2 years was accepted by UNESCO as a UNIVOC center. There are UNESCO UNIVOC centers across the world, really. We're very fortunate to have that one in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's one of those focal points for the development of TVET. So that the NTA has been working towards building its website, for example, where we would have more information available on TVET careers for young persons. Where there'll be a portal that they could go on to, and that portal will give them information in terms of the careers based on their interests and based on what they may have already done. There's the opportunity for persons to come in and have their skills assessed by the NTA and earn a qualification in what we call our workforce assessment centers that are approved by the NTA. So there are a number of things that will lead into careers in TVET, which the NTA as a UNIVOC center will be disseminating information on in the months to come. Yes.
All right. So the persons who host the lives that we have been sustained by over the COVID period, those who host the lives, those are people who are involved in TVET education.
Exactly.
Those who are taping our show today.
Exactly.
These are TVET professionals.
Yes.
So again, the concept that TVET is somehow when you do that when you have no other skill and you can't follow academics, that is a completely flawed concept, and it's something that we need to, as parents, it is also something that we need to teach our children, that, you know, TVET education is important, skills-based learning is important, and it aids in national development and also your personal development. We heard Naomi say every aspect of her life was impacted by what she learned in TVET education and how that practical worked for her. So as we come almost to the end, I want to ask a question about COVID-19 and TVET education, because hands-on and not being able to gather and all of that, you know, they don't necessarily go together. So how has TVET fared, or some aspects of TVET fared in the COVID-19 pandemic scenario?
Yeah, well, we've all struggled because we were being forced to move from face-to-face to remote mode immediately. What we engage in education is now called emergency remote teaching. And that's where we've all been forced to put some distance and use the technology to bridge that gap. So in terms of TVET, that transition would have been made as well. The difficulty, of course, is the high level of practical interaction that you require. And so a number of demonstrations, live demonstrations are being used, again, using the media. So you have the live demonstrations, you have simulations that are being used. I remember looking at a simulation some years ago in industry where they were training persons to handle valves, and they used a tap. You can use the kitchen tap and you can simulate that action of opening and closing the valve. So there are a number of ways that you can do simulations. A lot of them now are computer simulations, and they're very live, you know, looking. And so the institutions have had to use those as well. But you don't compromise the development of the actual skill, and the assessment of the skills still has to be done even after the pandemic.
Naomi, you would have been in the midst of your study when the pandemic would have hit us and the effects of that. So how was your experience doing this practical subject and not being able to do your hands-on?
It was a bit challenging because last year we were supposed to do exams in June, our final exams, and that had to be pushed back. So we had to take our work, our hands-on work, and put it online on Zoom. It was a bit challenging because sometimes when the teacher talking, you're not really hearing him. So when some of the regulations was lifted, we went on apprenticeship to different panyards, the Quadriton family, and we had to do everything separate, and it was a bit different because in pan manufacturing, you have to be listening to your teacher. He might come and take your hammer and show you what to do. So it was a bit challenging, but we persevere and we actually did the exam. And also too, you'll touch on how IT is also part of TVET. I had the opportunity to make a pan manufacturing video for ECCE, and it was a bit difficult for me to do that because I can't be there in person to show the students like what to do. So I had to, you know, take out my camera, do a little bit of editing. So now I develop a new skill.
Exactly.
So I am really happy. So I could look into these areas. And now I could take up IT or take up, you know, videography or something like that.
Which again would be TVET.
Yes.
So, I mean, the fact is that there's so much breadth in terms of what TVET education is, and it builds your creativity, it builds your self-development, and there's a certain sense of satisfaction as well, because you're actually creating something and seeing the results of it, you know, at the same time and so on. So as we wrap up, a final question for everyone. There's been a call in some quarters, and it certainly came out of our consultation by some persons as well, for TVET subjects or a TVET subject to be compulsory in secondary education. So just like math and English, there's been a call in some quarters for a TVET subject to be compulsory for students. So I want to ask each of you to just give your brief perspectives on that. We can start with Naomi and we'll come down to Dr. Allen.
Well, I am all for that. Well, I am an advocate for steel pan and the steel pan industry. I put myself in that position.
All right. She declares her interest.
And I think that steel pan and steel pan education, that includes manufacturing, that includes tuning, performance, arrangement, everything should be in the school system. And you know how the panel is, we're not really stable because not much thing is documented. And I think the foundation starts at the education level. If we introduce our children to it and give them the opportunity, well, they'll be like, wow, when I grow up, I would like to be a manufacturer. And I'll be like, cool. So it should be like an easy transition from primary school, we introduce them to something, secondary school, move on to tertiary education. And I think that should be mandatory. It should be there. It's really, really important in order for us to develop our culture, for us to learn more of the business style. Because to me, steel pan is a worldwide thing and everybody else is recognizing it. And COVID showed and it revealed that the steel pan is a novelty instrument and this could be used as a business and we could build something on this that is so terrific. And we need the opportunities, we need the stuff, we need it to be in schools, we need it there, and it's very important.
In another iteration of my life, I can tell you I'm so proud of her, you know, promoting the natural culture of Trinidad and Tobago. So Naomi is all for making a mandatory CVQ or subject at the CSEC level. Ms. Bikram, what's your perspective on that?
I really don't think that we should have any objection to that. I recall whether it was cookery, and you go to your prestige schools in the 70s and 80s and everybody had to do it. And I see no reason why we shouldn't. We may find more students and may choose to get involved and get into a TVET area post-secondary schools. And I think it should be encouraged. I would honestly, I've been saying for a few years now, I think we need to come to the stage where we offer more scholarships, actually, in TVET subject areas as we go forward. It is something we need to look at.
So we have 2 votes out of 3 thus far. So
and you have 3 votes, because I support it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the holistic development of people. I think we want well-rounded individuals in our society. I feel that the technical skill gives that individual that opportunity to demonstrate something that he or she can do and something that he or she loves doing. I think that's the important thing. It has to be something that there's an interest in. So we offer a widest range as possible and allow people to develop those skills of something that they can do. I think it will help in terms of building better citizens at the end of the day. And then when you think about your home, we all at some point in time need to be able to fix something. Something goes bad and you can't get a plumber in the night or you can't find, you know, someone. You have to do something yourself. And that's just one of the ways that we'd be able to help ourselves as well.
Dr. Allen clearly has been sneaking into my bio. I can tell you that the reason I did an electrical course is because I had difficulty getting an electrician.
Huh?
So I myself am a big advocate for TVET education and for the grounding it gives you and for the sense of pride you feel when you have accomplished something with your hands and you feel as though, you know, you've been the author of your destiny. So I want to really thank my guests, Dr. Allen, Ms. Carol Bikram, and Naomi, for being here, for discussing this most important and vital topic, which I think will only increase in importance as you go along, especially facing the situation we are now with COVID. And I want to encourage all of our parents, all of anybody viewing now, to take a deeper look into what TVET education is, TVET careers, because it's very, very broad. And certainly, as expressed by all of our guests here, and as something I also believe in, it can aid in the development of better citizens and therefore make a better Trinidad and Tobago. thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for viewing.
Minister.
And we are so grateful for your presence with us as we discussed in today's MOE Conversations, TVET Education.